I started the lo-fi song by figuring out a chord that sounded similar to other lo-fi songs that I've heard before. So I started off with this chord, and then I was moving it around seeing if I could find any chords that worked well with this chord. So I went going up and down the fretboard to try and work out a good chord, and then I decided to play that chord and then go strings lower to play this chord, and I thought that worked well. And then I added a picking pattern and some other notes onto it. I then started to mess around with the EQ for the guitar and the melody guitars, and I went into sort of underwater sound, which made it sound a lot simpler. So I started off with this EQ pattern, which is quite simple, but it wasn't enough for the sound. So I ended up cutting out a lot of the highs, so it was more, sounded like it was coming from an underwater mic, and this worked well with the song. I then added some space designer to make it sound like it was for live performance, and this worked well, especially when the acoustic guitar came in, because the song starts off with the electric guitar plugged in with direct input and some of the preset Logic amps, and then I actually used two microphones on an acoustic guitar, one above the fretboard around the 12th fret to get the sound of the fingers sliding on the strings when changing between notes, and then I got another mic above the sound hole to get most of the sound from the guitar. After I'd recorded the intro guitar chords, I then looped it for 2 more bars, and then I put a small drum cymbal to transition into the main part of the song. This is the EQ level for my intro guitar. I made the highs very low and the basses very low to make it sound really compressed, like most lo-fi song guitars or pianos. All of the notes are very drowned out, like it's underwater but without any bass. These are all of the effects that I put on the intro guitar. I put on the channel EQ, which is to drown it out and make it compressed, and some reverb and a little bit of gain, because it sounded very quiet after I had EQ'd almost all of the sound out. And the reverb is just to make the notes carry on between the chord changes, and it makes it sound a lot cleaner. On the right of this screenshot you can see the 4 different tracks. The top one is the electric guitar riff, and then the one below it is the acoustic guitar riff, and then you also have the simple drum beat below that, which is just 4 notes for every bar, and it stays the same throughout the song just to keep it simple, and it makes you focus on all the other parts of the song. There's also a synth bass, which is just 2 notes to make it simple. I also made a vocal guide on the guitar, but I ended up not using vocals in this song because I wanted to use sampling and mess around with that so I could learn a new skill. And that sounded like this. This is the gain setting that I used for the intro guitar, because it was way too quiet after I'd finished EQing it to make it sound like a lo-fi song. This is the effect that I used on the electric guitar before I decided to cut it out of the main part of the song. The reason I cut it out of the main part is because of the tape delay, and instead of just taking out the tape delay and leaving the guitar in, it didn't make the chords sound right in the song, and they clashed with each other, which made it sound as if it was out of key or out of time, so it didn't work and I took it out. After the intro for the song, I decided to put a small guitar riff in, just a simple few note riff, and then make a harmony for it with similar notes, and that sounded like this. This is the EQ pattern for both of my riffs with the chords and the harmonies. I decided to cut out a lot of the low end and then boost some of the mids and a bit of the high, just because I wanted it to sound different to the lo-fi sound and not as compressed and squeezed down as the other ones. So I ended up using this as the final EQ for both of those. This is the EQ that I used for the MIDI flute towards the end of the song. I decided to cut out almost all of the high end to compress it and give it a lo-fi sound. And this worked well with the harmonics as well, because it sounded similar to the artificial harmonics on the guitar, and they sort of worked well together and they didn't clash at all. I ended up sampling XXX Tentacion talking. I picked 3 different clips of him talking. All of them were in his car while he was driving along just before he got shot. And while I was sampling them, I had to cut out the background music that was playing out of his car. So I basically had to get the EQ, and the EQ shows you the frequency levels of everything coming in through that channel. And I basically just cut out every frequency that wasn't his voice to get rid of most of it. If you solo the tracks with his voice in, you can hear some of the background music, but with my music over the top, you can't hear it at all. And that worked really well with the song because it was almost perfectly in time with the beat, and it had a good message behind it too. This is the final song with the samples and the artificial harmonics and the flute at the end of the song. The artificial harmonics basically work. So a normal harmonic on the guitar would be an open string like this, and then you just hover your finger over the 12th fret, which is an octave, and it plays the note in an octave above, but it sounds a lot smoother and a warmer sound. And those harmonics only work on some of the frets, like the 12th fret, the 7th fret, and the 5th fret if you can try and get it. But that doesn't work as well. But to put it on other frets, such as the 3rd fret, you would need to place your finger on the 3rd fret, like you're holding down a normal note. And then with your picking hand, you have to put your first finger, or whichever preferred finger, on the octave above that, and then pluck it with your thumb. And that's how you create an artificial harmonic.
Worst thing comes to worst, I fucking die a tragic death or some shit, and I'm not able to see out my dreams. I at least want to know that the kids perceived my message and were able to make something of themselves and able to take my message and use it and turn it into something positive, and to at least have a good life. If I'm gonna die or ever be a sacrifice, I want to make sure that my life made at least 5 million kids happy, or they found some sort of answers or resolve in my life, regardless of the negative around my name, regardless of the bad things people say to me. I don't give a fuck, because I know my goal in the end, and I know what I want for everyone, and I know what my message is. The sooner we understand that we need each other, which is the truth, bro, because I wouldn't be who the fuck I was now if I didn't have anyone. Truly, if I didn't have the support support from you guys and I didn't have the people that truly believed in me, I would be nothing. And I'm aware of that. And I've gone through my fair share of destruction and pain in the process to get where I've gotten, and I know that anything is possible.